Racist bullies at Millbrook High thought they could intimidate and harass their new black teacher into silence. Maya Chen Washington, a former Olympic Taekwondo alternate turned educator, endured months of racial slurs, vandalism, and threats from the football coach, principal, and school board member who controlled the small Montana town. When these three men cornered her in a dark parking lot after she exposed their corruption, they discovered that beneath her patient-teacher exterior lived a martial arts expert who refused to be their victim. Maya's breaking point would change everything. Maya Chen Washington stood in the center of Millbrook High's gymnasium. Her chest rose and fell in measured breaths. Around her, three grown men lay groaning on the polished floor. Coach Thompson clutched his shoulder. Principal Hayes rolled onto his side, whimpering. School board member Rick Sullivan sat up slowly, blood trickling from his split lip. Students held phones high. Parents pressed against the bleachers. The overhead lights buzzed in the sudden silence. Maya's hands trembled. Reality crashed over her like cold water. She had done it again. Her voice came out as a whisper first, then louder, cutting through the shocked quiet. Call the police. 72 hours earlier, Maya had pulled her dusty Honda into the Millbrook High parking lot. September wind carried the scent of dying grass and diesel fuel from the school buses lined up like yellow dominoes. Her phone buzzed. Another text from David. She deleted it without reading. The school building squatted against the Montana sky, like a brick afterthought. Paint peeled from the window frames. Weeds pushed through cracks in the sidewalk. Maya grabbed her leather satchel from the passenger seat. The bag held lesson plans she had worked on until 3 in the morning. History could come alive if presented right. These students deserved that much. The front office smelled like burnt coffee and copy machine toner. A secretary with graying hair looked up from her computer. You must be the new teacher. Maya nodded. She had driven 800 miles for this fresh start. Chicago felt like another lifetime. Principal Hayes wants to see you before first period. Hayes sat behind a desk covered in football memorabilia. Trophies lined the shelves. Team photos stretched back decades. He barely looked up when Maya entered. Miss Washington, welcome to Millbrook. Dr. Washington, actually. His pen stopped moving. He glanced up with pale eyes that seemed to measure her worth in a single look. Right. Well, this isn't the city. Things work differently here. Our community has certain expectations. Maya waited for him to elaborate. He didn't. The previous teacher left suddenly. Family emergency, they said. Hope you plan to stick around longer. Something in his tone made her spine straighten. A warning wrapped in politeness. I'm here to teach, Mr. Hayes. That's what I intend to do. The hallways buzzed with morning energy. Students clustered around lockers. Their voices echoed off cinder block walls painted institutional green. Maya found her classroom at the end of the hall. Room 142. The door stuck when she tried to open it. Inside, desks sat in rigid rows. A chalkboard dominated the front wall. Dust motes danced in the shaft of sunlight from the single window. She set down her bag and surveyed her new kingdom. This would do. The first bell rang. Students filed in with the enthusiasm of prisoners heading to execution. They took their seats without making eye contact. Maya had seen this before. History was where creativity went to die in most schools, not in her classroom. Good morning. I'm Dr. Washington. We're going to do something different this year. A girl in the back row looked up. Interest flickered in her eyes for just a moment. History isn't about memorizing dates. It's about understanding why people make the choices they do, why they fight, why they surrender, why they keep going when everything falls apart. The girl's attention held. A boy near the window turned his head slightly. Today we start with a question. What would you die for? The room went quiet in a different way. Not the sullen silence of boredom, the focused quiet of minds engaging. Maya felt the familiar thrill. This was why she taught. This moment when ideas caught fire. After third period, she walked to the faculty lounge for coffee. Coach Thompson stood near the vending machine. He wore a red polo shirt stretched tight. across his gut. His eyes swept over Maya like she was livestock at auction. "You the new janitor?" Maya blinked. "I'm sorry? Thought they hired a new custodian. My mistake." He knew exactly who she was. The smile that followed made her skin crawl. "Actually, I'm Dr. Washington, the new history teacher." Thompson's smile widened. "Well, I'll be. Dr. Washington. Fancy that." He drew out the title like it tasted bitter. Maya poured her coffee and left without another word. Some battles weren't worth fighting on the first day. Her phone buzzed during lunch. David again. This time she read the message. "Maya, please call me. It's important." She typed back quickly. "Can't talk now. New job." His reply came immediately. "That's what I'm worried about." Maya stared at the words. David had always been protective since their father died, but this felt different, urgent. She deleted the conversation and put her phone away. The afternoon brought more classes, more students warming up to her unconventional methods. A boy named Marcus stayed after the bell to ask about the civil rights movement. His questions showed real curiosity. "Dr. Washington, why did they keep fighting when it seemed hopeless?" Maya paused. The question cut deeper than he knew. "Because some things are worth the cost, Marcus, even when the cost is everything." He nodded like he understood more than his 16 years should allow. Maya was packing up her classroom when Principal Hayes appeared in the doorway. His presence filled the frame like a storm cloud. "How was your first day, Miss Washington?" "Dr. Washington, and it was excellent, thank you." Hayes stepped inside. The room suddenly felt smaller. "Word of advice. This community has traditions, standards. Teachers who don't fit those standards tend to have problems." Maya's hand stilled on her lesson plans. "What kind of problems?" "Oh, you know. Accidents, car trouble, family emergencies that require sudden departures." His smile held no warmth. "Ask the last teacher who tried to shake things up." The air in the room grew thick. Maya forced herself to meet his gaze. "What happened to Ms. Rodriguez?" Hayes's expression went blank. For a moment, the mask slipped entirely. "Ms. Rodriguez had a car accident. Very unfortunate. Had to leave town for medical treatment." "I see. Do you?" Hayes moved closer to her desk. "Because I'd hate for you to have similar difficulties, especially so early in the school year." Maya's training kicked in. Assess the threat, identify escape routes, stay calm. "I'm just here to teach history, Mr. Hayes." "Good. See that you stick to the approved curriculum. We wouldn't want you giving students the wrong ideas about the past." He turned to leave, then paused. "Welcome to Millbrook, Miss Washington. I hope your stay is more successful than your predecessors." Maya stood alone in her classroom as his footsteps faded down the hall. The September wind rattled the window. Somewhere in the building, a door slammed. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to David's number. Her finger hovered over the call button. Instead, she opened her laptop and began typing. If they wanted to play games about the approved curriculum, she would need to know exactly what Ms. Rodriguez had been teaching, and why it had gotten her run out of town. The parking lot was nearly empty when Maya finally locked her classroom door. Her Honda sat under a streetlight that flickered like a dying candle. As she walked across the cracked asphalt, she noticed something white tucked under her windshield wiper. A note, handwritten in block letters. "Go back where you came from." Maya crumpled the paper in her fist. She looked around the empty lot. No witnesses, no cameras that she could see. Just her and the Montana wind and the weight of a choice she hadn't expected to face so soon. She got in her car and drove to her apartment. But she didn't pack her bags. Some fights found you whether you wanted them or not. Maya arrived at school the next morning to find her car windows covered in soap. The words were crude, ugly, written in thick white letters that caught the morning light like accusations. She scraped them off with her fingernails. The soap came away in flakes that stuck to her skin. Other teachers walked past without stopping. Their silence spoke louder than sympathy. The library sat at the heart of Millbrook High like a forgotten cathedral. Dust motes floated between towering shelves. Maya found the elderly librarian reshelving books with careful precision. Mrs. Chen? The woman looked up. Her eyes held, the sharp intelligence of someone who had watched decades of small-town secrets unfold. You're the new history teacher. Yes, I was hoping you could help me understand something about my predecessor. Mrs. Chen's hands went still on the books. She glanced toward the library entrance. Empty hallway. No witnesses. Maria Rodriguez was a good teacher. The best we'd had in years. What happened to her? Mrs. Chen pulled a book from the shelf. Its spine read, Local History, 1950-2000. She opened it to a chapter about the integration of Millbrook schools. Maria taught this unit last spring. The real version, not the sanitized story in our textbooks. Maya studied the photographs. Black students walking through hostile crowds. White faces twisted with rage. The images could have been taken yesterday. The school board didn't approve? The school, classroom. He didn't look up from his paperwork. Kids will be kids. I'll have maintenance clean it up. This wasn't kids. Now Hayes raised his eyes. They held the flat coldness of a snake studying prey. Careful about making accusations you can't prove, Miss Washington. It's Dr. Washington, and I have proof of a lot of things. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Hayes went very still. The only sound was the tick of the wall clock counting seconds like a heartbeat. Is that a threat? It's a statement of fact. Hayes stood up slowly. His bulk filled the space behind the desk like a gathering storm. Let me give you some free advice. Teachers who make trouble in this district tend to have short careers and long memories. Maya met his stare without blinking. Something had shifted inside her during the past weeks. Fear remained, but it no longer controlled her decisions. Some troubles are worth having. She left his office and walked back to her vandalized classroom. Students were already arriving for sixth period. They saw the destruction and their faces hardened with understanding. This was what happened to teachers who cared too much. Maya grabbed a broom from the supply closet and started cleaning. Marcus picked up an overturned desk without being asked. Sarah began gathering scattered papers. Soon the entire class was working together, restoring order from chaos. Nobody spoke. But in their shared silence, Maya heard something powerful. Solidarity. That evening, she sat in her apartment with Maria Rodriguez's hidden files spread across her kitchen table. Bank statements, grade sheets, email printouts. A paper trail that led directly to the corruption-poisoning Millbrook High. Her laptop showed the school's website. Smiling students in graduation caps. Teachers posing with achievement awards. The facade of educational success built on lies. Maya opened a new document and began typing. Heritage Night was 3 weeks away. An evening when the community gathered to celebrate local history and student achievements. The perfect time to share some uncomfortable truths about both. Her phone buzzed with another text from David. This time she didn't delete it. Maya. Federal investigation opening into Millbrook District finances. You could be a witness. Or a victim. Your choice. She typed back slowly. Some choices make themselves. Outside her window, October wind rattled the glass like skeletal fingers. Somewhere in the darkness she knew they were watching, planning their next move in a game that had already cost one teacher everything. Maya saved her Heritage Night presentation and closed the laptop. Tomorrow she would start preparing her students for the truth about their school's history. The truth about how courage sometimes meant standing alone against forces that preferred shadows to light. The truth about why some fights were worth having, regardless of the cost. Heritage Night arrived with November's first snow. Flakes drifted past the gymnasium windows like ash from a distant fire. Maya stood backstage listening to the murmur of gathering families. Her presentation slides glowed on her laptop screen. Local civil rights heroes, the real story. The one they didn't want told. Mrs. Chen found her in the shadows behind the stage curtain. The librarian's weathered hands carried a thermos of coffee that smelled like comfort. You don't have to do this tonight. Maya accepted the coffee. Its warmth spread through her fingers like courage. Yes, I do. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see the crowd. Students sat with their families in metal folding chairs. Principal Hayes stood near the back wall, arms crossed like a bouncer. Coach Thompson lounged against the bleachers, his bulk casting shadows across nearby seats. Rick Sullivan worked the room like a politician, shaking hands and slapping backs. The three men who controlled this town's secrets. Marcus waved at her from the front row. Sarah gave her a thumbs up. A dozen other students smiled with the trust that only the young could offer so freely. Maya had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Not just the presentation, but everything that would follow. The accusations, the denials, the price of speaking. Truth in a place built on lies. Principal Hayes took the microphone first. His voice boomed across the gymnasium with practiced authority. Welcome to Millbrook High's annual Heritage Night. Tonight we celebrate our community's proud history and the achievements of our outstanding students. Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Hayes smiled with the satisfaction of a man who controlled the narrative. Our first presentation comes from Dr. Washington, our new history teacher. She'll be sharing some thoughts on local heritage. The emphasis on thoughts carried clear dismissal. Maya walked onto the stage, feeling every eye in the room track her movement. The microphone felt cold against her palm. Good evening, I want to... Board panicked. Maria was asking questions about why certain students always passed despite failing grades. Why the football team's academic records didn't match their transcripts. Mrs. Chen closed the book with a soft thud. She found irregularities in the financial records, grade changes, money moved between accounts without proper documentation. Maya felt the pieces clicking into place. The harassment wasn't just about race, it was about power, about secrets that certain people would kill to protect. Where is she now? Gone. Left town the day after her accident. Mrs. Chen's voice dropped to a whisper. Said she couldn't prove what they did to her car. Brake lines don't cut themselves. The words hung in the air like smoke. Maya understood the message. Step out of line and accidents happen. Did she leave anything behind? Any evidence? Mrs. Chen looked around the empty library again. Then she walked to a section marked Reference Materials. Her fingers found a thick volume titled Montana Agricultural Statistics 1995-2005. She pulled it from the shelf and handed it to Maya. The book felt too light, too hollow. Sometimes teachers forget things in old books. Silly, really. Maya opened the cover. The pages had been cut out to create a hiding space. Inside lay a manila folder thick with photocopied documents, grade sheets with whiteout corrections, bank statements with highlighting, correspondence between Principal Hayes and Coach Thompson discussing player eligibilities, evidence of systematic corruption stretching back years. I never saw you take that book, Mrs. Chen said quietly. Maya slipped the folder into her bag. Thank you. Be careful, Dr. Washington. Maria thought she was safe too. The harassment escalated like a slow-building storm. Maya's classroom door was superglued shut Monday morning. Her lesson plans disappeared from her desk Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday brought another note on her windshield. This one included a photograph. Maya's apartment building, her bedroom window. The message was clear. We know where you sleep. She started varying her route to work, checking her car for damage each morning, looking over her shoulder in grocery store parking lots. But she kept teaching. Her students began to trust her. Marcus asked thoughtful questions about civil rights leaders. A quiet girl named Sarah started participating in discussions. Even the football players showed flickers of engagement when Maya connected historical events to their own lives. The folder from Mrs. Chen painted a clear picture. Coach Thompson had been changing grades for star players since 2018. Principal Hayes approved the changes and buried them in bureaucratic paperwork. Rick Sullivan, as school board treasurer, moved money between accounts to hide tutoring payments. That never happened. They had built a machine that turned failing students into college recruits. All it required was the silence of everyone who might object. Maria Rodriguez had threatened that silence. Now Maya posed the same threat. Her phone rang during lunch break, David's name on the screen. Maya, we need to talk. I'm at work. That's the problem. I've been investigating financial irregularities in rural school districts. Millbrook. High came up on my radar. Maya walked to her empty classroom and closed the door. What kind of irregularities? Grade manipulation, fraudulent transcripts, money laundering through athletic programs. David's voice carried the weight of official concern. Maya, you need to leave that place. Tonight. I can't do that. Why not? She thought of Marcus staying after class to discuss segregation, of Sarah finding her voice in classroom debates, of students who had never seen a teacher who looked like them succeed despite the obstacles. These kids need someone who won't give up on them. They need someone alive to teach them. The line went quiet. Maya heard her brother's breathing, across 800 miles of distance. I found the police report from Maria Rodriguez's accident, David said finally. Brake failure on a mountain road. She was lucky to survive. Lucky? Maya, promise me you'll be careful. These people play for keeps. She hung up and stared out her classroom window. The October sky pressed down like a gray ceiling. In the distance, mountains rose like broken teeth. That afternoon brought the worst incident yet. Maya returned from the bathroom to find her classroom destroyed. Desks overturned, books scattered across the floor. Her computer monitor cracked, like a spider web. On the whiteboard, someone had written a message in red marker. Last warning. Maya began picking up the scattered papers. Her hands moved with mechanical precision while her mind raced through options. Run like Maria Rodriguez. Disappear into another teaching job in another state. Or stay and fight. She found Principal Hayes in his office surrounded by football, trophies that gleamed like golden idols. Someone vandalized my mountain curve. Maya's blood went cold. They were confessing, bragging about what they had done to Maria Rodriguez. Car accidents happen so easy around here, Sullivan added, especially to troublemakers who don't know when to keep quiet. Hayes pulled something from his pocket, a tire iron. Metal gleamed under the security light. Nothing personal, Miss Washington. Just business. They had moved past threats into action. Maya realized with crystal clarity that these men intended to hurt her badly, maybe kill her, make it look like another accident, just like they had done to Maria. Her body responded before her mind finished processing the danger. Years of TAEKWONDO training flooded back like muscle memory. Her stance shifted subtly, weight balanced, hands loose at her sides. Last chance, Hayes said, raising the tire iron. Get in your car, drive away, never come back. Maya looked at him steadily. At all three of them. Drunk men who had terrorized teachers and students for years, who had built their power on fear and silence. No. The word came out quietly, but it carried the weight of every choice that had led to this moment. Hayes's face twisted with rage. Then you get the same lesson. We taught Rodriguez. He swung the tire iron in a vicious arc toward her head. Maya moved. Her body flowed like water around the clumsy attack. The tire iron whistled past her ear. Hayes's momentum carried him forward, off balance. Maya's palm strike caught him. In the solar plexus, precise, controlled. Just enough force to drop him gasping to his knees. Thompson rushed her from the left. Maya pivoted and swept his legs with surgical precision. He hit the asphalt hard, skull bouncing off the concrete with a sound like a melon dropping. Sullivan charged with surprising speed for his size. Maya sidestepped and used his momentum against him. A simple hip throw sent him crashing into the side of a parked car. The impact set off an alarm that shrieked into the November night. 3 men lay groaning on the cold pavement. Maya stood over, them breathing hard but controlled. Her hands shook with adrenaline and the terrible knowledge of what she had just done. In the distance, sirens wailed. Someone had called the police. Maya looked down at Hayes, who was struggling to sit up. Blood trickled from his split lip. His eyes held shock and something else, fear. For the first time in years, these men knew what it felt like to be afraid. You asked what I would die for, Maya said quietly. The real question is what I'll live for. Red and blue lights painted the parking lot in alternating colors. Police cars arrived with their sirens cutting through the night like accusations. Maya raised her hands and waited for the officers to approach. She knew what came next. Arrest, questions, consequences for defending herself against men who had confessed to attempted murder. But as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Peace. She had stopped running from her past, had chosen to fight for her students' future, had proven that some lines couldn't be crossed without consequences. The cost would be everything: her career, her freedom, her carefully rebuilt life. But some prices were worth paying. 6 months later, Maya stood in room 142 for the last time. Cardboard boxes lined her desk like coffins for dead dreams. April sunlight streamed through windows she would never see again. The plea agreement lay signed in her purse. Assault in the 3rd degree, 2 years probation, permanent ban from teaching in Montana. The price of defending herself against 3 men who had confessed to attempted murder. Those same men faced federal charges now. David's investigation had torn through Millbrook's corruption like wildfire through dead grass. Grade manipulation, embezzlement, witness intimidation. The evidence Maya had found in Mrs. Chen's library provided the foundation for 17 separate indictments. But Maya was still the one packing boxes. Her students began arriving before the final bell. They came quietly, faces carrying the weight of understanding. Marcus held a card signed by the entire senior class. Sarah clutched a potted plant like a peace offering. "Dr. Washington," Marcus said. His voice had changed over the winter. Deeper now, more certain. "We wanted to thank you." Maya accepted, the card with hands that wanted to shake. Inside, dozens of signatures surrounded a simple message. "You taught us that some fights are worth having." More students filtered in. The football players who had started asking real questions about history. The quiet kids who had found their voices in classroom discussions. Even some who had never spoken to her directly. They filled every desk, stood along the walls, transformed her empty classroom into something alive one final time. "What will you do now?" Sarah asked. Maya had been avoiding that question for months. Teaching was who she was. Without it, she tell you about some heroes you might not know. People from this very community who fought for justice when justice was dangerous. She clicked to her first slide. A photograph of Millbrook's Main Street from 1963. The same buildings, but different signs. Different rules about who could eat where. "This is your town 58 years ago. Some of you were alive then. You remember." An uncomfortable shifting in the audience. Older faces going carefully blank. Younger ones leaning forward, with curiosity. Maya clicked to the next slide. A newspaper clipping about school integration. Local families who had risked everything to send their children to previously all-white schools. The Johnson family lived on Elm Street. Their daughter, Rebecca, was one of the first black students to attend Millbrook High. She faced threats every day, slurs written on her locker, rocks thrown at her family's windows. The gymnasium had gone silent. Maya could feel Principal Hayes's glare burning into her back. But Rebecca graduated. She became a nurse, spent 30 years caring for the same people who once tried to drive her away. That's heroism. Another slide. Another story of courage in the face of hatred. Maya watched faces in the crowd. Some showed genuine interest. Others displayed the tight-lipped discomfort of people hearing uncomfortable truths. She moved through her presentation methodically. Each story built upon the last. Each hero demonstrated the same theme. Standing up for what's right, regardless of the cost. These people understood something important, Maya said as her final slide appeared. Progress requires courage, not just from leaders, but from ordinary people who refuse to accept injustice. She looked directly at her students. That legacy lives in all of you. The choice to speak up or stay silent, to fight for what's right or accept what's easy. The applause started slowly. Students first, then some parents joining. Not everyone. Clapped. But enough. Maya left the stage knowing she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. In the crowd, she saw Hayes whispering urgently to Thompson. Sullivan's face had turned the color of old brick. The rest of Heritage Night passed in a blur of other presentations. Student poetry, a slideshow about the football team's championship, hopes, safe topics that didn't challenge anyone's version of history. Maya accepted congratulations from parents and students. Their words felt warm against the chill of disapproval radiating from the school's power structure. Mrs. Chen appeared, at her elbow as families began filtering toward the exits. That was brave. That was necessary. They stood together watching the gymnasium empty. Maya noticed that Hayes, Thompson, and Sullivan had disappeared, probably planning their response to her act of defiance. The parking lot buzzed with conversations. Car doors slammed. Engines started. Maya walked slowly toward her Honda, keys ready in her hand out of habit. The lot emptied quickly. Small towns went to bed early on school nights. Maya reached her car and noticed something wrong immediately. The other vehicles were gone, but 3 figures remained in the shadows near the building, waiting. Hayes stepped into the circle of light cast by a security lamp. Thompson emerged from behind a pickup truck. Sullivan blocked the exit route with his bulk. They had been drinking. Maya could smell the alcohol from 20 feet away. Liquid courage for what they planned to do. That was quite a presentation, Hayes said. His voice carried none of its usual authority. Just rage barely held in check. Maya's training kicked in automatically. Assess the threat. Identify escape routes. Stay calm. 3 men. All larger than her. All drunk enough to be stupid, but not drunk enough to be harmless. The parking lot offered no cover, no witnesses, no help. Gentlemen, is there something you need to discuss? Thompson laughed without humor. Oh, we got plenty to discuss, starting with your big mouth. They began, moving closer, not rushing, taking their time like predators who knew their prey had nowhere to run. Maya's mind cataloged the distances. 15 feet to Thompson, 20 to Sullivan. Hayes closest at 12 feet and closing. You think you're smart? Hayes continued. Coming into our town, our school, stirring up trouble with your stories about heroes and justice. Those were historical facts. Those were lies designed to make us look bad. Sullivan spoke for the first time. His words came out slurred but clear enough. We warned you, told you to stick to the approved curriculum, but you couldn't listen. They were close enough now that Maya could see their faces clearly, not just anger, something darker, the look of men who had done terrible things before and expected to do them again. You know what happened to the last teacher who got too big for her britches? Thompson asked. Poor Maria had such a terrible accident. Brakes failed right on that. Felt like a river cut off from its source. I'm not sure yet. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway. The librarian moved with the careful dignity of someone carrying precious cargo. In her arms, she held a thick folder. The new curriculum proposals, she announced, for next year's history classes. Maya opened the folder and felt her breath catch. Lesson plans for teaching civil rights, units on local heroes and uncomfortable truths, study guides for discussions about courage and justice. Her curriculum, the one she had developed during long nights of preparation. They were keeping it. The new teacher will need these, Mrs. Chen continued. Someone young, energetic, someone who believes education can change the world. The older woman's eyes held a familiar spark. Maya recognized the look of someone who had spent decades fighting small battles against ignorance and fear. The school board voted unanimously to adopt your Heritage Night presentation as required curriculum. Funny how federal investigations change people's perspectives. Maya stared at the lesson plans, her words, her work, living on in the hands of another teacher who would face the same challenges she had. Will you tell them? She asked quietly. Tell them to be careful. Mrs. Chen nodded. I'll tell them to be brave, just like you were. The students began sharing stories, how Maya's teaching had changed their thinking, plans to study education in college. dreams of becoming teachers themselves because they had seen what one person could accomplish. Marcus stood near the window, looking out at the parking lot where everything had changed. "I'm going to major in history," he announced. "Want to teach high school, show kids that the past matters." Others nodded. Sarah planned to study social work. 2 football players had decided on education degrees, seeds planted in fertile ground, beginning to sprout. Maya felt something shift inside her chest. Not healing exactly, but recognition, understanding. She had lost everything and saved everything simultaneously. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. "Federal prosecutor wants to meet. About a consulting position, education reform advocacy. Interested?" Maya looked around her classroom one final time. At students who had become warriors. At Mrs. Chen, who had guarded truth like a sacred flame. At empty walls that had witnessed transformation. Fighting corruption in courtrooms instead of classrooms. Using legal weapons instead of lesson plans. Different battlefield. Same war. She typed back quickly. "Very interested." The afternoon wound down like a clock running out of time. Students hugged her goodbye and promised to stay in touch. Mrs. Chen helped carry boxes to Maya's car. The Honda looked the same as it had 6 months ago, but everything else had changed. Maya drove through Millbrook's main street one last time. Past the diner where she had eaten solitary meals. Past the courthouse where her fate had been decided. Past the apartment building where she had learned to sleep with one eye open. A town that had tried to break her spirit, and instead had forged it stronger. At the city limits, she pulled over and called Maria Rodriguez. The former teacher had been following the federal investigation from her new home in California. "Maya, I heard about your plea agreement. I'm sorry." "Don't be. We won." Silence on the line. Then something that might have been laughter or tears. "Yes," Maria said finally. "I suppose we did." Maya hung up and continued driving east toward whatever came next. In her rearview mirror, Millbrook disappeared behind rolling hills that looked like sleeping giants. Her phone rang again. Unknown number with a Montana area code. "Dr. Washington, this is Jennifer Martinez. I'm the new history teacher at Millbrook High. Mrs. Chen gave me your number." Maya pulled over again. "How can I help you?" "I wanted to thank you for the curriculum, for the lesson plans, for showing me what courage looks like." The young woman's voice carried excitement and determination. Maya heard her own younger self in those tones. "Be careful," Maya said. "They'll test you." "I'm ready." Mrs. Chen told me about the filing cabinet in the library, about watching for signs, about standing up when it matters. Maya smiled for the first time in months. The torch passed to steady hands, the fight continuing. "Call me if you need anything, day or night." She drove toward Denver as the sun set behind mountains that looked like broken promises made whole. Somewhere ahead lay federal courtrooms and policy meetings and the chance to protect teachers like Jennifer Martinez from the corruption that had nearly destroyed them both. Different work, same purpose. Her phone buzzed with notifications, messages from former students. Updates on college applications and scholarship awards. Pictures from graduation practice. Seeds becoming trees. Roots growing deep. Maya reached the interstate as stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Each point of light looked like a classroom where truth was being taught. A student asking difficult questions. A teacher refusing to be silenced. She had learned something during her months in Millbrook. Something worth losing. Everything to understand. Some standards needed to be broken. Some fights were worth having. Some victories required sacrifice that looked like defeat to everyone except those who understood the true price of justice. Maya accelerated toward her future, carrying the past like a treasured burden. Behind her, Millbrook slept under starlight. In room 142, Jennifer Martinez would arrive Monday morning to teach students that history was not just what happened, but what people chose to do when history was watching. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel, And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.